a cause.
All right. Well, hey, good morning, church. Man, so glad that you're here. To all of my wonderful people live at the City House, thank you so much for making this a priority in your week. And let's put our hands together. Welcome our extended church family hanging out with us online. Love you guys as well. Thank you for tuning in. So I know Brandon's already mentioned this, but really quickly, 7 days and counting from today till our annual Kingdom offering. It's the only time of the year we do 2 offerings in one day. The first will just be our normal tithes and offerings, which go towards funding the ministry, the day-to-day of the church. And then at the conclusion of our service next Sunday, November 14th, we're going to take up our Kingdom offering. And 100% of every penny collected in that offering will go towards all of the different goals and projects we have in our catalog. Brandon said we have a few in that catalog that are yet to be met. And by a few, he meant like 85%. So we got a little bit of work to do. And we're still going to dream and have faith that God is going to show up in an amazing, amazing way. We've been highlighting different projects every single week. And I want to bring one project to your attention that hits very close to home, literally, and that is the venue. One of the projects we would love to see move forward and prayerfully hope that it could possibly be completed in 2022 is our venue. For those of you unfamiliar with the venue, it is the physical space between where we currently are now in the auditorium and the Blue Room. It's the similar square footage of the Blue Room, and our dream is that we would build out that space by adding a stage, finishing all of the sheetrock, and adding audio, video, lighting. And what we would love to do is get 70 to 100 seats in that room. Now, there's really 3 main groups of people that will be directly impacted from this environment. The first are our students, which by a show of hands, if you're here and you have any kids ages like kindergarten through 12th grade, would you raise your hand? Yeah, so like look around the room, it's like a lot of us, right? My hand is up. I've got a 4th grader and a 7th grader. And so the first group of people that would be impacted from this space are our youth students that meet on Wednesday night. They're kind of like in between places. You know, this is a big room and it feels like a lot for our youth group, and they're currently meeting in our Blue Room, which also is not ideal for them. So we'd love to provide their own space on a Wednesday night that's small and intimate, where they can meet with the Lord and we can minister to those guys super effective. The second group is as we continue to grow our elementary ministry down the road, our plan has always been to eventually split that K through 5 into 2 separate environments. So that way we can be more age appropriate in the content and once again, minister more effectively. The third group, you may or may not know this, but there is a Spanish-speaking congregation that meets at the City House every Sunday at 2 p.m. And here's the cool thing. They meet here completely free of charge. We have never charged them a penny, and because so many of you faithfully give, we're able to provide them a church environment at no expense to their small congregation. And I think that's pretty amazing. Can we just thank God that that's like what the church is supposed to do, right? It's like we're all kind of a part of the same team, so why would we not do that? And we've blessed them, and they currently meet in our Blue Room, and so they set up all their instruments, and they tear it down. And they would just be so blessed to have a space where they could take advantage of video screens and lights and a sound system. And so this is one of the dreams that we would love to accomplish through our Kingdom offering. We got started on this project last year through your giving. We're able to do a lot of demo and begin the electrical, but there's still like drywall. Basically, it's a shell, and we need to build out the shell. And so once again, be praying now. That's what we've said. We won't tell you how much to give, but we will ask, would you ask the Lord and simply just be obedient to what he says? Because when everyone does their part, the kingdom of God expands on the earth. Amen? All right. So we've got a lot of fun stuff coming up, and today we're going to hit the pause button on our normally scheduled program. And don't worry, we're going to get back into teaching through the Gospel of John the second week of February. But we've got some really cool stuff planned through this winter. We're going to be doing a 3-week series in December called Hidden Christmas, based off of a book by Tim Keller by the same name. And we'll take some of these key Bible passages. For some of us, we've been saying these passages since we were children, and we're going to kind of unearth and uncover the hidden depth and power behind these texts. At the end of this month, we'll begin a little series known as At the Movies. Anyone excited about that? We just got done filming last week. So excited, and we're actually calling it At the Movies, Kind of. That's the title of it this year, because we've, instead of like these more cinematic films, we've chosen 3 documentaries that we feel were very timely and impactful, and we're now going to uncover the redemptive truths. It's going to be so good. Not only that, we're going to learn as a church how to slow down in the month of January. Anyone need to slow down a little bit? Right? Anyone need to take a little chill pill? And the frenetic pace of our life. We're going to learn that in January, and then we'll all culminate Super Bowl Sunday, where we're going to do our Vision Sunday. And we've got so much stuff has happened in our church. So much has changed, and we have very purposefully kind of hit the brakes on kind of dreaming and casting the vision of where we're going. And some of that is due to the fact that we've been kind of assembling the plane in the air because of the rapid pace of change. But I believe that God has given us clarity. And you might be like, well, that's a really weird day to have Vision Sunday on Super Bowl Sunday. And we thought about that. And we're like, who shows up to church on Super Bowl Sunday? The people who are super bought in. So if you show up, if you attend online, you're going to hear all about where we feel God is leading us, and it's super exciting. And it all starts really today. And today we begin a brand new 3-week series entitled Rebel with a Cause. Or you could say Rebel with a Cause, depending on how you emphasize the syllable there. But today, and I want to be just kind of clear of this at the beginning of our time together, this is a generosity series. And we will, as a church, over the next 3 weeks, be leaning in to the cultural value that we carry here. That it's not just an obligatory statement, but it's a deeply held conviction that we believe we are gifted by God to give. So we're going to talk about what that means over the next 3 weeks. However, this series is going to feel much different than giving series in the past. Now, in the past, we've tackled generosity from a very practical and even like systematic perspective, where it's like, this is how you become generous. You start giving, and then you become a regular giver and a percentage giver and a tither, and you pray about what radical generosity looks like. And this has been super effective for so many in our church as you've kind of leaned in and you've learned how to trust God more faithfully in the area of your finances. But this year, with everything that has happened, I felt inclined that we needed a generosity series that helped us rethink the relationship we have with money and possessions mentally, and most important, emotionally. And I love the goal of this series. I'm super proud of it. And our team, we spent a long time kind of crafting the verbiage, because the goal of this series is simple. We want to give you the gift of a learned defiance. Would you say that with me? A learned defiance. Meaning this, that nothing that we're about to teach you will come naturally. That this will never be your default setting. And when left to our own devices, the gravitational pull will always be away from these values that we are going to instill in you over the next 3 weeks. But through this series, we want to give you a learned defiance in a world of self-fulfillment. We want to instill in you a rebel spirit when it comes to this culture we live in that is immersed in a narrative of self-fulfillment. Because I hope you know we do live in a world of self-fulfillment. I was researching it this week, and I discovered that for anyone living in the 1970s, were you alive in the 1970s? You want to raise your hand? All right. So a lot of you, I missed the cutoff about 3 years. But if you were alive in 1970, the average American was exposed to anywhere between 500 and 1,600 advertisements a day. That's a lot. And you'd have witnessed these ads through television commercials primarily, newspaper, magazines, billboards. So fast forward now, just a mere 40 years till today. Is anyone alive today? Okay. The silence was concerning me, so I thought I would just go ahead and ask. For those of us alive today, just 40 years later, the average American is now, they believe, exposed to anywhere from 6,000 to 10,000 ads a day. 6,000 to 10,000. So in a mere 40 years, that number has jumped tenfold. And there's a myriad of different ways that we experience these advertisements. Let me just read a few. Search ads, in-app banners, notifications, video ads, streaming ads, email advertisements, digital banner ads, video game ads, product placements, and that's just to name a few. So 10,000 times a day, we are told this lie, that you deserve this. That if you can just get blank, then you will be fulfilled, your life will be more complete, better, and you'll finally find love. We're told that if you'll only buy this body spray, then women will find you attractive, not creepy. It's that easy. Thank you, Axe. When in reality, all that's going to happen is you will now smell like a middle school boy's locker room. We're told that if you buy this car, now I'll be perceived as successful. Or if I buy this particular paper towel, the quilted quicker picker-upper, then when little Johnny spills red drink all over the floor, instead of me screaming at him, then we'll laugh together as we joyously hug one another. How wonderful it'll be. The problem is that it's all garbage. None of it's true. It's all a lie. And to add insult to injury, not only do we learn, are we exposed to 10,000 lies a day externally, but the Bible tells us that our heart is a factory of lies internally. Genesis 6, that every thought of the heart of man is continuously evil. Genesis 8, the imagination of man's heart is evil from its youth. Jeremiah 17, the heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it? Matthew 15, for out of the heart proceed evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witnesses, blasphemies, and what might possibly be the most devastating and powerful blasphemy of all is that I am the center of my own universe, that I am the Lord of my destiny. And here it is. I can play the role of God over my life better than God. This is the challenge that we face, and it leads to crippling discontentment. In fact, I want to do an exercise this morning. I want you all to pull out your phones. And you will rarely ever hear me say that, maybe never again. So live up this moment right now. Pull out your phones. If you don't have a phone, pen and paper, papyrus and feather, whatever that thing is for you, anything. And for those of you online, I want you to do this as well. Pull up your laptop, your iPad. I want you to get out the phone, and here's what I want us to do. We did this exercise a few years ago. Some of you may remember. I want you to think for a moment, what are the 3 to 5 things in your life right now? 3 to 5. We don't need 10. But just 3 to 5 things that if you're like, hey, listen, if I had this, it would be so much easier to live with contentment. That if I had this, And take a minute and just think about that and write them down. If I had X, then it would be so much easier to live a content life. What are those things for you? Maybe for you, like when I finally get a new boss. Now I'm just going to give a bunch of examples to buy you time so we're not sitting in awkward silence, okay? If I had a new boss, like man, the old boss is making my life miserable. If we could just make this one change, would live with contentment. For some, it's like I need to get a raise. I need to be compensated fairly for the work that I do. Maybe for you, the key to contentment is you have to finish school. That you're sick of working and studying. I just want to run in one lane. Perhaps for you, the key to contentment is I have to meet the right person. I need this season of singleness to come to an end. My life will be content when I can retire. I'm sick of working for the man, 9 to 5. I want to make my own schedule and go where I want and travel and see my kids and my grandkids. I'll finally be content when we can have the child. And we've been battling with infertility, and whether that's through more natural biological means or fostering and adopting, there's this gaping hole in our family until it's fulfilled. I can't be content. Maybe for you, I want to make enough money, and I think guys, we sometimes put this pressure and we feel sometimes shame. I'll be content when I can make enough money for my wife no longer has to work. That she can stay at home with the kids, and then I can be the man and the provider, and I feel discontent until I can lean into that role. I'll be more content when my kids start sleeping through the night. I can tell you this, that our 2-year-old son, Wally, just recently discovered that like Spider-Man, he can get out of his own crib. And so if I look very tired, that would be why. I'll be more content when I discover my purpose, when the pain from the divorce subsides, when I can achieve a standard of living that I deem appropriate. Move into the nicer neighborhood with the bigger house, the extra car garage. I want to be able to provide for my kids the things that they want. I'm sick of denying my children all the time. I'll finally be content when I can get out of debt. All right, what are those things for you? Take a moment. So if you're done, pull them back up. I want you to just take a moment and glance at those things. Don't look at me. Look at your list. I want you to read through them. I want you to become very familiar with this list. Even if it helps, imagine for a moment your life as this puzzle piece, and there's these 3 to 5 missing pieces that once those can finally get in place, then my life will feel complete and whole. And as you're looking at your list, it's very important. I want you to hear what I'm saying. That if you believe any of the things on that list can provide you lasting contentment, then you are destined to spend the remainder of your life in a prison of discontentment. Any of those things. And you might think, well, Craig, that was a little bit of a bait and switch. A little bit of a trick question. Come on now. It's kind of harsh, but what you don't realize is I've actually just done you a massive favor. I've helped you because without you even realizing it, you have now identified the very things in your life that you are looking to provide that which only Jesus Christ can give you. You have them listed out, customized, curtailed just for you. And this is massive. Because so many of us were looking to people, to opportunities, to things to provide us what only Christ can provide. That boyfriend that you put on the list, you might meet him. And he, unlike all of the other guys before him, could be an okay guy. And you could marry him, and he could become a great husband and father. But do you know what? He will never provide the contentment of your soul because he is incapable of doing so. He can't do it. You might finally get that new boss at work, and she might be amazing, kind, considerate. She might have some emotional intelligence. She might treat you as a human being with a soul and inherent worth, but she will never provide you contentment. She's incapable of doing so. The reality we learn in life is that the new carpet always gets stained, the shoes will always scuff, the new car that looks so good, the door's gonna get dinged. And it will leave us with a greater sense of longing and emptiness. And here is why. That no created thing, human beings included, has the ability to fulfill the desires of our soul. Can this fulfill me? Simply ask this question: was it created? If the answer is yes, then the answer is no. No created thing, nor person, has the ability to fulfill the desires of the human soul. The overwhelming majority of Americans today will live their life in a perpetual state of discontentment because they believe the thing that they need to find contentment is just right around the corner. I just need this one more promotion. I need this one little thing, this new relationship, this new opportunity. And when that arrives, then I'll arrive. And it never happens. So in order to break this cultural norm, in order to break this cycle, we must adopt a learned defiance. And so how do we do this? How do we learn how to live a defiant life in this cultural norm? And the good news for us is when you want to dismantle a lie, do you know where you go? To the truth. And so we look to the Bible, and the good news is this, that one of the world's greatest pastors, the Apostle Paul, he taught this lesson to his apprentice, Timothy. And he gives it to us in 1 Timothy chapter 6, starting in verse number 6. And would you just say this out loud with me? Could you do that? Let's participate. Is it up there? Good. I'm learning my lesson, see? I'm going to start looking at the screen before I ask you to read along. Let's read it together. But godliness with contentment is great gain. Let's read it one more time. But godliness with contentment is great gain. The Greek word that Paul uses for contentment is this word I don't speak Greek, not my native language. The funny thing is I even phonetically have this written out in my notes. Autarkeia. Say that with me. Autarkeia. And it's a fascinating word because autarkeia, it means someone who, if you live with autarkeia, it means that you live with a deep conviction, knowing that contentment cannot come from possessing an external thing. And don't miss this, because this is our first key in our learned defiance against discontentment. It's that contentment cannot come from the outside in. It can only come from the inside out. So look once again at your list. How many of those things were external, attempting to infiltrate the internal heart? Contentment has to start here and work its way out. And Paul, he explains like where this internal contentment is birthed. And he uses the phrase godliness with contentment. And this is where it becomes spiritual, guys. Because I believe with all of my heart, you can discipline yourself away from material things. You can do that, right? People do that all the time. That you can You can discipline yourself to break the tether of material possessions, but only Jesus Christ can transform a human heart. And we see this all the time. We talked about this a few months ago, the phenomenon of being a dry drunk. That even an alcoholic who disciplines themselves out of the destructive habit of drinking, unless they address the deeper pain, unless they deal with the deeper torment of the heart, they will then, sober, still manifest the same destructive behaviors in other parts of their life. There's a deeper healing that we need. This is why Paul says in Philippians 4:13, one of the most often misused verses in all the Bible. He says, I've learned the secret to be content in any situation, whether I'm well-fed or hungry, living in plenty or in want. I've learned the secret. I can do all things through who? Through Christ, who gives me strength. That is the key. When Christ becomes our all-sufficiency, when Christ becomes the thing, he is the one who satisfies. That he is the one where we find our identity. That Christ is the one we go to find our worth, to find love, to find fulfillment. It's only through Christ. And when we do this, when we begin this process, he begins to transform our hearts. He begins to break the tether that we have towards things and stuff and these dreams that we feel like we need. But not only that, he begins to break our minds and transform our minds. He begins to change the way we view the world. And when this happens, it's almost comical. When Christ transforms your mind, we begin to look at I cannot believe the grip on my heart that a piece of metal wrapped around a frame used to have. That's just gonna break down one day. That was my life. When we look at clothes, or when we begin to look at the perspective of I can't believe how desperately I needed the acceptance of these people. Unfollow. That was easy. I feel great. But Christ has to begin that work by transforming our minds. And here's the second meaning of godly contentment. And this is the second key to this learned defiance against discontentment. That we have to learn how to trust where God has placed us. In 8 years, I don't think I've ever talked about this idea. Let me make this personal for a moment. Do you trust the position in life where God has placed you? Maybe you're here today and maybe you don't have a lot of money or earthly possessions. Have you ever stopped to consider, and this perhaps might be a brand new thought for you, have you ever stopped to consider maybe this is where God has placed me in life for a reason? And that's okay. Now, I get that this is a radically countercultural thought. But maybe God has me in this place so that he can hedge me against the trappings of wealth and abundance. That maybe God has allowed me to live in this station of life so that I might, even for just a little moment, begin to understand the life of Jesus Christ, who the Bible says the Son of Man doesn't even have a place to lay his head. Now, it's worth mentioning that it's very likely that you also might be in a terrible financial place because of your own foolishness and your own sin, and you self-destructed your own life. But this is the beauty of God, is he will meet you even there. That he works even within our own mistakes and our failures, and he still reveals himself to us in this place that we find ourselves in. Have you ever stopped to consider that maybe in God, in his sovereignty, in his goodness, allowed me to just live in this place? And that's okay. Maybe you're here this morning and you would be, and I get this is a tricky word, maybe you would be considered wealthy by the world's standards. Or you have an abundance, way more than you actually need. Have you ever stopped to ask the question, why has God given me so much stuff? In fact, I would say this. If the Christians of the world would ask that single question, why has God given me so much, there would be no one that dies of hunger. No one would die without access to clean water. No one would die without preventable diseases, that every church plant would be fully funded if the Christians of the world would simply ask, why in the world has God given me so much? And have I stewarded well the resources that have been entrusted to me? You know, I think for a lot of us, when we ask that question, to backtrack for a moment, why have we been given so much? For most of us, our answer is this. Well, I've got a lot because I worked my butt off, right? I've got a lot because when everyone else was out partying, acting a fool, like I was in my room studying like a nerd. But then I got a degree, right? Or then I got that apprenticeship and I became a journeyman and now I'm like making great money. I got here because my family sacrificed immensely to get me to this position, and now we get to reap the rewards of our labor. And I'm sure all of those things are true. But have you ever stopped to consider what things had to happen in your life that were absolutely, completely out of your control for you to arrive at the place you're in? How about the first one? What about the fact that we were born in the United States of America? Did you control that? Do you know there's 196 countries in the world? Or so some random website that I Googled this morning told me. Don't fact check that. 196 or so. You were born here. Do you realize there are people who their families literally drowned in oceans attempting to come to this country on rafts so that they might have the life that you did nothing to earn? You were just born here. I was just born here. Did you do something for that? Or was it just given to you? What about your IQ? Most of the research nowadays is saying that your IQ is set at birth. That you can learn more information, you can become smarter, but your IQ, it's like your processor in a computer. It determines how quickly you process information. It's completely out of your control. It's set at birth. So are you sharp? Does business make sense to you? Are you kind of a quick thinker, a quick processor? You didn't do anything to deserve that. It was just given to you. Think about all of the things in your life that just had to go right. Your health. Maybe you were born into a great family that supported you. Maybe there were opportunities that just came out of nowhere that you capitalized on. Maybe you're beginning to understand even right now that this entire idea of a self-made man or a self-made woman is a complete fallacy. What happens when we honestly ask the question, God, why have you given me so much? Maybe it's partially because I worked, but maybe so much of it was just you trusting me. And how well have we stewarded those resources? And I would say that same thing to those of us here with very little. How well have you stewarded your resources? Because the amount is irrelevant. And listen, I'm all about like God's favor. I'm all about working hard and praying and believing that you're going to get that promotion and that new opportunity and that raise. But I think there's something to be said, church, that's not said near enough, where maybe we just simply learn how to trust God in the position that he has placed us in. And it's okay. It's not about rich and poor. It's not about the in and the out, the good and the bad, the privileged and the unprivileged. It's about simply learning to know that God, you know best, and I trust in you. Paul, he continues verse 7. For we brought nothing into the world, and we can take nothing out of it. But if we have what? Food and clothing, we will be content with that. The third key to this learned defiance of discontentment is that gratitude breaks the chains of unquenchable desire. It's only when we're grateful for what God has given us that the power of what God has not given us is broken. Why don't you check out this video?
Hi, I'm Melissa Henry, and I've been going to this church almost 3 years. It'll be 3 years in January.
I'm John Henry. I've also been going to this church almost 3 years in January. A few years ago, we went through a period of homelessness. I'd lost my job. We lost our place to live. At one point, we were living in a motel. And, I was doing everything I could to try and keep the family together.
For me, I feel like I failed him. I failed God. I failed my husband. I failed my kids. I felt like if I was a better wife, if I was a better Christian, a better child of God, this wouldn't have happened. Have you turned your back on me, God, because I wasn't a good Christian? Was I not good steward of my money? We went from being homeless to his new job saying, we need to get you out of there. And God wrapped his arms around me and he said, don't give up, keep fighting. And he goes, I need you to hear this. This is a breakthrough for you. I've got you. This is just a trial. And looking back, it's like, God's like, now you've gone through this. You're going to help somebody.
We realized how wasteful we were being with our resources that God had given us. And we had decided we really wanted to be more generous with our lives. So I asked God, I'm like, how do I go about doing this, Lord? And then God's like, well, let me show you. And they started the small groups. And one of the small groups was, the financial class. They have helped us really see the wasteful areas in our lives that we were really just throwing money away.
Rebecca and Tyler, they really are just very patient, very kind when it comes to showing and teaching me what I need to do. And, I didn't realize that I was super wasteful. Just things that you can just go back and you can just say, oh, I really didn't need that. It was just definitely eye-opening to figure out how to budget a lot better.
And helping people. Within the first couple weeks of me being in that class, there was a gentleman that was in there with us who needed a new job. And I had the connections to help him. That's not because of me. That was because God put me in a position where I could help him. And ultimately, all the glory is God's. If I could tell anybody struggling with finances and what to do with their life, it's simply this. First and foremost, put it in God's hands and follow his commandments. Give him his first 10%.
Don't worry. Read the word, pray, definitely get into the word. Don't just tithe, but get into the word and really talk to him. He may not give you money, but he may make your money stretch.
The resources in general God's given you, he gives you what you can handle. He doesn't give you any more than that. If you're good in handling what he's given you, he'll give you more. And I'm not saying to do that with that intention in your heart, but if you become a good steward of your resources, your money, your finances, whatever, God's going to see that and go, okay, you're more than capable of handling that. I'm going to give you more. And yeah, it's a little bit more work, but it's a lot more rewarding.
That's incredible. I want to just say thank you for the Henrys of having the courage to tell their story. And listen, we're going to talk here in a second at the end of service how if you would like to join, we're going to start just a brand new financial class early next year. And here's my heart. Maybe you're here, and I know statistically there are so many of you, even in this room, and you just feel hopeless. That you've dug yourself into such a hole that now your only realistic option is to hide. There is hope. That's a story, that's a real story from a couple in our church that's living out hope. And we have a group of people in our church who are using their gifts to help walk alongside it. And so if that's you, ma'am, I know that that's a hard class to sign up, and we're going to give you some ways to do it in a moment, but I pray that you would just have the courage to do so. It'll change your life. But the secret sauce of all of this, when it comes to contentment, is learning to posture your heart with gratitude. And so here's how I want to end. If you just close your eyes and bow your head with me, I want to just create just a moment, a sacred space. I know I had you earlier list out 3 to 5 things that you felt like you needed to find contentment. Now I want you to do a better list. What are you grateful for? Just right now, begin to just quickly evaluate your life. Right where you sit, would you begin to just thank God? Would you begin to just posture with gratitude all that He's given you? Has He blessed you this year financially? Has He given you a restored relationship? Are you healthy? Perhaps you've got a loved one who's got COVID and just recovered. Has your family become closer than ever? Has your relationship with God become more intimate than ever through all of these hardships? What are you thankful for? 10,000 times a day, we're pulled away to think and look into ourselves. But what would it look like for you to just look up right now? God, I'm grateful. What we begin to find is that when we lead with gratitude, the chains of desire that at one point in our life was unquenchable, they're shattered. Father, I pray that you would help us in this. This is a foreign behavior to us. Father, would you teach us how to begin with gratitude, not want? Father, would you teach us how in our hard work, in our excellence, in our attempts to build better lives for our families and our loved ones, that we don't lose the beauty of just trusting that we are in the place we are because, God, this is where you have us in this season, and that's okay. Would you begin to foster a learned defiance against discontentment? Would you help us see, Lord, the lies that we've believed, the lists that we've formed, the idols that we've created, looking to them for that which only your Son, Jesus, can provide. That Jesus is enough. That He is that which sustains us. That He is our source. That Jesus is our provision. That Jesus is our hope. That Jesus is our anchor in the storm, that Jesus is the light in the darkness, that Jesus brings truth in the middle of confusion, that Jesus reconciles a broken relationship, that Jesus gives us the desires of our soul, that Jesus is that which gives us power, that Jesus gives hope, that He gives love, and it's a love that changes and heals and restores. Father, may we be reminded this morning that Jesus isn't just enough, he's more than enough. Forgive us of the times we've attempted to make stuff our personal Jesus. Forgive us of the times we've attempted to make relationships or the hopes of relationships our personal Jesus. Forgive us of the times we've attempted to make opportunities our personal Jesus. And we once again turn back to the cross and we say, Jesus is enough. Even if you never gave us anything else for the rest of our lives, you've given us more than enough in Jesus. Help us teach and live differently. Transform our hearts, but also our minds. That we might learn the secret of being content in any situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want, because we can do all things through Jesus, who gives us strength. Amen. Amen. Is Jesus enough, church? Can we praise him? Can we just thank God with a moment of gratitude for all that he's done? Amen.